The defeat at sea did not deter the Allied High Command. On the contrary, it fueled their ambition. Churchill's plan had failed, but surrender was not an option. If the ships could not pass, then the soldiers would march through. A massive army under the command of General Ian Hamilton was assembled in Egypt and the Greek islands. The objective: to invade the Gallipoli Peninsula, silence the Ottoman batteries from land, and clear the way for the fleet to Istanbul. Once again, they underestimated the Ottoman resistance. To them, the sick man of Europe could not possibly stand against such a formidable force. At dawn on April 25, 1915, one of the largest amphibious operations in history began. The Anzac, Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, troops were mistakenly landed on a rugged, steep coast north of Arieburnu, which would become known as Anzac Cove. They were met by sheer cliffs and a small but determined force of Turkish defenders entrenched on the high ground. On the Hellas front, British and French troops launched a bloody and arduous struggle, landing on 5 separate beaches. The Allies fell far short of their first-day objectives, finding themselves pinned down on narrow beachheads. In these critical moments, Lieutenant Colonel Mustafa Kemal emerged. As the commander of the 19th Division, he immediately recognized the danger. Without waiting for orders, he took the initiative and led his unit to the heights of Chunuk Bair and Koja Chaymen-Tepe. When he intercepted the Anzac vanguard climbing the hills, he gave his soldiers an order that would go down in history: "I do not order you to attack, I order you to die. In the time which passes until we die, other troops and commanders can come and take our places." This command was not just a military tactic. It was a declaration of will that would determine the fate of a nation. Mustafa Kemal's move halted the Anzac advance and prevented the fall of the peninsula. Following the initial landings in April, the battle devolved into a brutal trench warfare, reminiscent of the Western Front but under far harsher conditions. On a narrow strip of land, hundreds of thousands of soldiers lived through hell for months in trenches just meters apart. The scorching summer heat, unbearable thirst, swarms of flies caused by corpses and waste, and epidemics like dysentery claimed as many lives as enemy bullets. The Allies' new landings at Suvla Bay in August, and their major offensives on the Anafartala-Chunuk Bair line also failed against the stubborn Ottoman defense and Mustafa Kemal's brilliant command. For both sides, Gallipoli had become an unending war of attrition. After months of bloody conflict, the War Council in London accepted the bitter truth: the Gallipoli campaign was a failure. There was no victory to be won, only more casualties. In late 1915, the most difficult decision was made: evacuation. In December 1915 and on January 9, 1916, with masterful planning, approximately 140,000 soldiers were quietly withdrawn from the peninsula without a single loss of life. This was the only military success of the campaign, but it was also the admission of a strategic disaster and a monumental mistake that had cost tens of thousands of lives. For the Allies, Gallipoli was a harsh lesson and a political catastrophe for Churchill. For the Turkish nation, it was a heroic epic, a symbol of national unity and the spirit of resistance, and it marked the birth of a new leader named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk.